It's great to be talking Nebraska recruiting at a time like this, and nobody I'd rather do it with than Sean Callahan of Husker Online. Sean, everybody knows about the Dylan Rhule saga and how that played out, but Nebraska had a plan. Just days after Rhule committed to Georgia, Nebraska flipped QB Daniel Callahan from Missouri. Sean, what has Daniel Callahan's value been to this Nebraska class?
Well, Daniel Callahan's been huge just because he's given them a face of the class. And then, over the last month, he was named to the actual Elite 11. He made the finals, and he was named to the official Elite 11 list. So that just added to his credibility. But he immediately took leadership of this Nebraska recruiting class. And that was something they were missing. Obviously, Dylan Rhule, they played that process as long as they could. Before he committed to Georgia, and then they pivoted right to Callahan. Matt Rhule told Callahan that's how it would play out, and the key is Callahan really wants to be a Husker. He dreamed to be a Husker, and now he is operating as he is the leader of this recruiting class.
Just yesterday, in-state tight end Carter Nelson jumped on board, and he is the number 3 tight end in the country. Nebraska has now landed the top 4 players in-state. Sean, how has Nebraska kind of gotten this in-state traction going?
Yeah, I think you got to go back to Callahan, because before Callahan, you didn't know if they could get any one of these 4 guys. Because Devon Hall was leaning towards the SEC. Tennessee offered late. If Tennessee would have offered earlier, they may not have gotten Hall. I think he was looking that way. And then the Volunteers waited a couple of weeks before they offered. Isaiah McMorris had a committable offer at Oklahoma at one point, and USC was very close to giving him the green light to join their class. It just didn't play out, and Nebraska stayed on him, and it worked out to get him. But then Carter Nelson, you had Georgia, you had Notre Dame, you had experts from other recruiting networks that cover those teams put picks in for Carter Nelson at times to Georgia and Notre Dame. But Nebraska stayed the course. They brought in Nelson for the final visit weekend before the dead period. He had been to Nebraska as well, by far the most of any school. Ainsworth, Nebraska is over 4 hours from Lincoln. That means they're over 4 hours away from even the closest airport to get to, any of these other schools that Nelson was taking trips to. So they always had, I think, the geography advantage with Nelson. Callahan was big. Once Callahan got on board, he immediately got close with Carter Nelson. Memorial Day weekend, Nelson came down to Lincoln, visited Lincoln. Callahan was right there with him. They were seen at the College World Series before the official visit. The two of them were sitting in the stands together, and a picture went viral here on social media. So there were a lot of kind of connecting the dots that led to this moment with Nelson. By the way, the highest ranked in-state player in Nebraska, all the way back to former 5-star 2008 lineman Baker Steinkuhler.
Wow, did not know that. Well, it's a huge commitment, and now Nebraska is currently sitting with over 20 commits right now. We're right about the midpoint of summer. So, Sean, what's the biggest need that Nebraska still has left to fill?
I think you got to look on the defensive line area. They've done a really good job of getting full at the key positions: running back, wide receiver, tight end. They've got a good group of linemen. Offensive tackle, I think, is one area, but I think defensive line, they would need to get one more body. And realistically, I think there's only 2, maybe 3 spots left that they could take. And it's a heavy emphasis, as you can tell, on high school recruiting with Matt Rhule. He really wants to build the foundation of this program on high school players.
Hey, I get it, especially in the trenches. When Nebraska landed commitments from Bellevue West teammates Isaiah McMorris and Devon Hall, Bellevue West head coach Michael Huffman said, quote, "It just seems like there are adults now in charge." Sean, what's that mean?
I think the biggest thing is, Matt Rhule runs Nebraska football, and he has his finger on everything. And, he's very present. He's very active, and can't really say that about Scott Frost, Mike Riley, Bo Pelini when they were the head coaches. They had their moments, all of them, and strengths. But Matt Rhule really has his finger on the pulse of the day-to-day of running Nebraska football and understands everything. And he's very accessible. That's probably one of the biggest things that jumps out to me about Matt Rhule over any head coach I've been around in Nebraska. As far as getting in contact with them, communicating with them, I don't know if I've seen a more accessible head coach at Nebraska. I mean, he's the kind of guy that if you send him a text message, he'll respond to you within seconds and minutes of it going out, where, that obviously is not the case with most head coaches. So I think that's really won over a lot of the in-state coaches, just how easy he is to communicate with, and how honest he is, and how open the dialogue he keeps with these coaches is.
Sean, are there any other big names that you're monitoring that Nebraska fans want to know that could commit maybe before summer ends?
Yeah, there's a few. I think Grant Bricks out of Logan, Magnolia, Iowa, just picked up an Alabama offer before the dead period, visited Nebraska, visited Alabama, visited K-State and Oklahoma. That's one to watch. I think Nebraska is right in that conversation. I think Joseph Anderson, a defensive lineman out of St. Louis, who's visited Iowa, Kansas, and Nebraska. That's another name to keep tabs on. I mean, there are a few more pieces that will definitely move here for Nebraska, but not many. When you're over 20 commits, and they took so many players last year as well, they're already kind of pushing the numbers. But with the COVID year involved in college football for at least another couple of years, I think everybody's in the same boat as Nebraska, with numbers being much tighter these next couple of seasons.
Well, Sean, thank you for stopping by the Inside Scoop. Nebraska's on a run, and we wanted to talk a little Husker recruiting, so thanks for stopping by.
Anytime. Thanks.
Thank you for watching. Make sure you smash that subscribe button for me, and remember to check out all the videos on the On3 YouTube page.